All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 20 of Unfiltered Race Fans Only podcast. Today we got a new guest, Brad, with us, and we're going to give Brad a minute to introduce himself here in a second, and then we'll break down the weekend here at Bristol, which, was it a good race or not? We'll get everybody's opinion on what everybody thought, and we'll talk about some other topics as we go. So with that, floor is yours, Brad. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself before we get
Hey,
going.
appreciate it. Hey, my name is Brad Hockenberry. Most of you all see me on Facebook as Brad Shannon. That's by design because that does keep me out of trouble. If I have the boss lady's name attached, it keeps me out of trouble. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, I've been a big racing fan since probably 2000. I was thinking about it today, and because we went and looked at some stuff at the flea markets today, and I remember the first race that I actually watched was the 2000 No Bull race that Earnhardt Sr. came back at the end and won like that with the donut marks on the side of the car and stuff like that. So, but anyways, while we were out at the flea market today, I got to thinking. I remember the first car I ever bought when I got into collecting NASCAR. And I remember I got rid of it a long time ago. And I was like, man, if I find another one of it that's in a really good shape, I'm going to buy it. So the first one I ended up buying, I actually bought one today, and I had found one, and it's a $10 car, man. But it's the '98 Rusty Wallace Elvis car, okay? And it was the first one I ever bought when I got into it, And this $10 car probably has made me smile more all day long than any of these overpriced things behind me. But just because it was the memories of buying this first little $10 car, the winter circle that hell the hood and trunk don't open on it or anything, but just a lot of that stuff like that, man. It really brought a lot of good memories of getting back or getting into the hobby at that point in time. So first race I ever went to, I was in. Oh man, it was either '04 or '05 Talladega. It was the year that uh, Gordon passed. They threw the caution flag right before Junior was going to pass Gordon at the end, and all the beer cans were being thrown and all that.
I
And
was
I
good
remember
one.
my wife and I was sitting on the backstretch, and all of a sudden beer cans were getting chucked over our heads left and right. I mean, grenades are flying at the track and all that. I told her, I said, it's time to get the hell out of here. Like we're going to get one upside the head. So,
I believe that was
uh,
in four.
The Coke
four,
Zero
yeah, I
Four,
knew it was in that time frame somewhere. It was either 4 or 5 there. But
Coke Zero
now
Would have
Four
been
Hundred.
Pepsi then, I think.
No,
No,
it
it was
was
the Coke
Talladega.
Zero. Yeah,
No,
it
no,
was.
I mean
Well,
for Jeff it was Pepsi Pepsi
yeah, it
car.
was. It was a Coke sponsored race, and he won it in the Pepsi car. People were
yes,
Uh,
pissed.
yeah,
yep,
that sounds right. That
yep.
sounds right. But now I started pulling for Penske at that time because I thought Rusty had the best looking car on the track. I liked where it had the white hood and had all the darker blue down the side. And from then on, I've always been a Penske guy for the last 25 years now. So all this stuff behind me is all Penske and Wood Brothers. That's what all my stuff is. So love them or hate them, hey, that's where I'm at. Like I said, I'm a Penske guy. So
All right. Well, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us. Look forward to having a discussion with you. And with that, we'll go and get started. So this weekend we had all three series in Bristol. This is we said it last week. This is my favorite racetrack, hands down. My family's from Bristol. I grew up. I actually went to school there for a little bit when I lived with my grandparents over about 10, 15 minutes from the racetrack. My uncle's from there. Like we have a street over there, Harple Road Lane, actually, where you would think it'd be Hartford Road, but anyway, we got all our cousins and cousins, everything over there. So this is always my favorite place to go to because no matter how bad the race is or good the race is, there's still nothing like walking in that place. As long as they leave the stands up around and it still looks like a football stadium with a racetrack in it, there's still nothing
yeah,
else like it, and it's just amazing that way. So we had trucks, Xfinity, and Cup. Larson tried to do for the second time. He came up short at Homestead, and unfortunately for you, Blake, or fortunately, depends on your budget. Uh, he came up one spot short again, getting it done this time in the Xfinity side of the house, unfortunately. So I
Truck
thought,
series.
or was it the trucks he came up
yeah, he
short?
finished second
Yeah,
in the Truck
He
Series.
you're right.
he
That's
spanked
right.
them
Okay,
in
last time it was
Xfinity.
yeah. So this time he came up short in the truck series just by like that much. So he just I hope he does it again because I'd like to see. I think he can do it. But we'll see. So we'll go ahead and start with this weekend's truck race. What'd y'all think of that?
I thought it was the best race of the weekend as far as lanes. They weren't. Not as far as lanes, but just as far as passing goes. They, I wonder if they would have had practice if it would have been a better, like more grooves, because they could only use the bottom two lanes. They couldn't really use the top lane until the very end, and it was too late for that. Uh, but it was a pretty good race. There was a lot of action going on. But as far as Larson missing out, the right truck won, in my opinion. Chandler was on it,
Yep.
and he deserves the win also because there's no reason he should be in his Xfinity car right now because he's shown that he can win in both series, and it's probably just sponsor related that he's not in Xfinity right now. He should still be there, and there's drivers in Xfinity that shouldn't be there.
Now, I don't disagree with that at all. I've seen Chandler race here at the Snowball Derby, living here in the Panhandle region by Florida, 45 minutes from it, a handful of times, him and Jones and a couple others. And, watching him race the super late models and stuff is impressive as hell. So, I mean, I think he's a hell of a wheelman. So I was happy for him. I know how much he mentioned last year. Basically he was going home, didn't know what he was going to be doing this year. So for him to get a full-time ride, even though it's not at the tier he wanted, but to see him be successful, I think is great.
Yeah, I forgot to mention NASCAR threw a caution with like 15 to go for nothing. They said it was for weather, but Larson said on his onboard, it's been doing this all night. Why is this a caution now?
It was for weather, whether or not that's what NASCAR wanted to happen.
Let's play on words there.
They
Chris.
ruined a great
Fan
finish. Is what
shirt.
I'm
I
trying
like
to
the
get at.
shirt and I like to play on words.
They ruined a great finish. Is what I'm trying to say. It was.
Yeah, I
They
was
had been
listening to
doing
it.
that, spitting all night, and then all of a sudden, it's a problem.
Nobody
Yeah.
likes a spitter.
I was listening to it on the radio because we went out. I think we went out to dinner, and I was listening to where Larson was coming back through the field and listening to the different positions. I'm like, okay, is he going to get there or not? And then as he's carving his way through the field and everything, and then we hear that caution for missed. I'm like, they just ruined a hell of a race. Like listening to it, they sucked all the momentum out of it.
Yep.
So, which ironic enough, they don't do it as much now because of the betting and everything that's associated with it. But I mean, the handful of podcasts earlier this year between Carl Edwards, Casey Mears, Casey Kane, that have been on with DJD, that's been a topic of discussion. NASCAR putting their hand on the scale, throwing those cautions to try and, generate excitement. So, which they just let it play out. You were going to have a hell of a finish. I don't know if he'd have got there, but it would have been interesting to watch.
I wouldn't have cared. It was coming up. It was turning into a great battle for the lead, and then, like you said, let the air out of the building. Like, man, I don't know what they're like. I said they said it was misting all night, and then all of a sudden, it's a problem. And then we just went right back to green. It's like, okay, you did that to bunch them up
To
when
bunch
they're
them back
already
up,
bunched up. They're already bunched up. What'd you need to do it for? So,
Well, I can tell you, so on that topic of mist and throwing one out there, I guarantee you if there had been an overcast cloud in the sky yesterday, they'd have found a reason to throw. They'd be like, oh, I thought I saw a drop of rain on a camera somewhere to suck
yeah.
the air out of the room on Larson's victory. But it was a bright, sunshiny day. What a damn cloud in the sky. So,
Yep.
all right. Anything else on the trucks, gentlemen, before we move into Xfinity?
Mm-mm.
I mean, he didn't put a whooping on him like he did in the truck series at Homestead at least. So
Yeah,
Bristol,
I think that has to do with no practice.
yeah.
I mean, I hope with the comment that Alan made a little earlier, though, I hope they don't take Chandler Smith and move him to the Xfinity series. I hope that he runs this for a couple years in the trucks and he gets the opportunity to go back to Cup because we've talked about it numerous times before, the way how much the trucks race like the Cup cars do. I'd hate to see him get ruined by putting him in an Xfinity car at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I got something for that. Larson said on Happy Hour podcast. Did you hear the sound?
Yep.
He said he likes to run Xfinity because he knows these Xfinity drivers are not ready. He wants to basically come down and put a whooping on them so they can show them that they need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Essentially, that they are not anywhere close to ready. That there is more room to go, like to push the issue in those cars, and that's what he did Saturday. I mean, he just was like, "See ya,"
Yep.
and left them every time. So
Oh yeah, he was like 10 seconds up on fourth place, I think they said, within like 20 laps.
yeah.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I
If
think
that.
that Quapple, was he in the one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Karsakov.
Yeah, Trav
I
or
mean,
Carson.
he
Yeah.
he got it figured out at the end, and if there was a restart late, he possibly could have given Larson something, but we'll
Yep.
never know.
Well, so to Larson's comment, so early at the beginning of this year, one of our very well discussed guys, Corey LaJoy, basically made the comment, I'd rather not race. If I can't, he talked about the reason why he wasn't going to take the truck or whatever, but he basically made the comment of, I don't want to race at those lower levels because nobody's watching this, that, and the other. So that was the first driver from a cup ride bashing the quality of competition at the second and third tier. Now you've got a champion, which you can question Corey's credentials if you want to. This is a guy that wins in every damn thing he gets in. Is
Yeah,
like the second coming of NASCAR Jesus, according to Tony Stewart, Mark Martin, Jeff Gordon, like all that. So maybe not in fan appreciation, but for certain talent, you know, wise. And he basically came out and said the same thing. He just did it in a different way and said, you're by limiting the cup guys' involvement in the lower series, you've taken something out of it. And it's not just the discipline issues like we had at Martinsville, where they just have no appreciation for the equipment or respect for each other, but the lack of preparation, they're just not ready. And it's not all their fault either. I mean, NASCAR after COVID cutting all this practice to save teams money, which they haven't saved a fucking penny, but has definitely been detrimental. And you can look at some drivers that excelled in that but most have suffered as a result, whether that's, Haley Deegan, who's now in IndyCar Next, or, some other folks that have lost opportunities as a result. I think Larson saying the same thing, like, I need to go down there, not just because I'm an egomaniac and I want to win, but to remind them, like, to Corey's point, where he took a lot of flack earlier in the year, the top level is the show. There's a certain level of skill you're going to need to have, and y'all ain't got it yet because he flat fucking smoked him.
yeah,
And he was whooping him at Homestead, and and he'll do it at every one of them, and he's
yeah.
using full equipment with them. So, it's not
Yeah.
like the other guys don't have the same thing. They do, and he's out there putting down a show.
What
So
did he have up
for
to
another big
sixth
guy.
lap on a mile and a half racetrack?
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was on. It wasn't like it was a full green flag race. It was
Yeah.
like it went green with like what, like 100 to go or something,
Yeah.
and he had up to sixth lap. That's insane. So I mean,
Mhm.
he's not wrong. He's showing them, hey, there's a lot of room to make this
Improve.
car go, and y'all need to figure it out because if you want to be in a cup ride, you're going to have to compete with me, and you just ain't going to be able to do it right now.
No, no, definitely not. I mean, and they've done everything they can at the cup level to to make the field basically equal. So if you can't keep up with me at the second tier, you're definitely not going to keep up with me at the third tier when we get to the top of the damn mountain. So,
Right.
um, I thought the Xfinity race overall, besides the ass whooping Larson laid down, which again I don't have a problem with. To me, it's no different than when we used to watch Kyle Busch go down there and do it. So I don't have a problem with it, whether it's him, Kyle Busch, or somebody else, because I think overall it's missing. I think we've gotten far enough away. You get a false sense of, you get a false assessment of where these guys really are because they're not having to compete against the guys at the top level, unlike back in the day, whether it was Kyle Busch, Matt Kenseth, Jeff Burton, those guys all went down there and ran partial seasons or full seasons, and it forced you to raise your game. So you knew when Clint Boyer got there, he was ready. You knew when Carl Edwards got there, he was ready. Greg Biffle, when he got there, was ready. When you get these guys up there now, they're really not proven. Yeah, they can go down there when they're all racing against people at their level, but they're not racing any superstars that are at the next level. So the chances of one of them being really ready more often than not are not. I think Josh Berry's the exception, but that's because of all his years of experience outside of those two lower series, in the super lates and everything else. But
But we don't need rookie stripes anymore. So
no,
That's good.
All
Oh,
right.
God.
So we'll move on to the race everybody cares about,
Mm.
the Cup race.
Arca? Oh.
Yeah, that one too.
Why do we
They
still
run. I don't
invite
pay
this
attention
guy?
to them anymore. To me, they're
Did we really just wait 45 minutes for this guy?
yes. Hey, he's sparing your gear. What's the problem here? He's on
He's
your
a
team.
Larson fan.
He's on your side. So, when they said they were putting down the PJ1, I was a little disappointed for the weekend just because I feel like we keep messing with the track, and I'm only disappointed because I was there for their first race after it was repaved, and I was there for the first race or the last race before it was repaved. And you keep tampering with the track to try and gimmick the product out, and so you're never to me, you're not really getting a real sense of what the track's ever going to do if you don't stop messing with it. And I worry at some
Yeah.
point you're going to ruin it, kind of like they ruined Texas. That you're going to get to a point where this crap won't come out or come off.
Yeah.
So
They wouldn't do that.
no, they would never, right? So but the race overall, I went back and rewatched it. I don't I didn't have a problem with what I watched. I enjoyed it. I understand where fans are coming from that have been ingrained or conditioned to expect game 7 moments all the time. But what I watched was the Bristol I grew up watching. I've been to Bristol several times and watched Matt Kenseth go in there and put on a damn clinic, hoping to see something more. And all I see is that stupid yellow bumblebee car of his go around there in the DeWalt yellow and black, literally just zinging by everybody. I'm like, why did I come to this again? And he did it for years on end. And same thing with Mark and Rusty. And, if you're in those fan groups, it was great. As a Gordon fan, I'd go and I'd be like, what the hell's wrong? Why can't my guy win? I know he knows how to win here. So,
Yeah.
but I didn't have a problem with it, but what do you guys think?
I would like to see them either put the PJ1 up higher as well instead of
Okay.
maybe just the bottom. Like, why not put it
Yeah.
on the top or just don't put it on at all? I don't really know why they do that. Like I said, you're kind of forcing everybody to run the bottom, and then by the time you start going up to the second lane and third lane, I mean, it's like Blake said a little while ago. Like at that point in time, the race is almost over with by the time it's rubbered in enough where you can stay up there. So I'm like, why not just put some of it farther up north on the track as well too?
Yeah, I would like to have seen them. I was thinking about that. Like, if you're going to put it down, don't put it down just on one groove.
Yeah,
I would like for them to maybe you start heavy on the bottom and, like 100%, you go up a lane and a half, 80%, go up a lane
yeah,
and a half, 60%, 40, 10 by the wall.
and that
Because
makes
if you
sense.
run all the grooves, it'll spread it. The car's weight will push it and spread it together.
We
And
can't
so
have that.
as it
It's,
fills in, you'll have all these different lanes. I think it'd be an awesome experiment.
hold on. You're talking about
Logic.
hold on. You're talking about '07 after. That
Yeah.
is what that track was. We had that
Yep.
and people bitched. That racing was amazing, but we only
Yep.
had 3 cautions. Oh my God.
Yep.
That's what happened in '08. We
Hmm.
only had 3 cautions in a race and it ruined Bristol, but it was amazing racing. The
Hmm.
racing was fantastic, but we bitched about it. Not we. I don't think Alan. I think you probably loved it. I know I
I did.
loved it. And but you have your lower. I hate saying it like this, but I'm Kentucky guy. Brad, you understand.
Yeah,
You have your lower form of race fan who just watches for wrecks and stuff like that that don't really even have a driver. But you got people like us that are hardcore fans that love racing for what it is, and
Yeah.
that was the perfect racetrack. Immediately was the
Yeah.
perfect racetrack,
Yeah.
and NASCAR and SMI listened to the lowly fan that wants wrecks and ground the track, and then
Hmm.
all you had was an outside groove
Which,
for
yeah, I
years.
remember
so
that.
when they ground it, they made a super tiny version of Darlington, which was also fucking awesome.
Yep.
So, and they were like, well, that's still not good. So let's fuck it up again.
Well, that's the thing.
Like, stop ruining the track.
If you stop putting PJ1 down, that's what you'll get back. You'll have the outside lane again, which we all loved.
Yep. Because
If you don't want to spend the what would it cost to repave that track right now?
I mean, it's
Probably
about the same
4
size.
million.
Honestly, if they had to pave it, yeah, I'd say probably what they spent in what is it, LA? Probably 3 to 5 million to pave it, to rip up the first, however deep the concrete is, and just lay back down asphalt. I wouldn't change the
Okay.
banking or
So,
anything, just pave it.
so if you're not gonna just stop using PJ1 and let them use the outside lane as the one groove track that you're trying to manufacture with the PJ1 that has to be applied perfectly to make it work right, uh, spend the money and make pre-07 Bristol again,
Yep.
because that'll give you your bump and run bullshit that 90% of the fans want.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so let's so in I listened to the teardown. I watched the video, then I listened to it again today.
You mean the wind down?
The wind down, the cry down. He needs the Jimmy Spencer crying towel. But I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm just being too overreactive when I listened to it the first time. So I listened to it yesterday. Then I went back, I listened to it again. And I understand what they're saying, but I think Jordan makes some good points. You know, you're complaining like how much of it is the track's responsibility, how much of it is the car's responsibility, and then how much of it, do we really have a problem? Is there really a problem with what we have, or is the bigger issue that we have preconditioned fans over the last basically since stage breaks came in, especially in 2018 or 2017, sorry. I know you're going to correct me, Blake. I
No,
think
I wasn't
because
doing. I was like,
I can
not
feel
again.
it. I was thinking, when we changed body styles, I always correlate it to the switch of the Camaro because it was right around
Yeah.
that time. But it was 2016 when we had the last time before it, and then we got a new Camaro, a new Camry, etc. So, but I feel like arguing with Mitch, for example, I'm not going to call him a low information voter or like a low information race fan, but I think we've now had this long enough, almost a decade. People have been preconditioned and ingrained in their head that every race should be a barn burner, every race should be a game 7 moment, because NASCAR has put their hands in the product so much for so long, manipulating the outcome, that's just the expectation. And that natural race of development is no longer an acceptable thing. Like Joey winning on fuel mileage at Gateway. Well, Brad did that at Kentucky and it was fucking awesome. Nothing wrong with that. Or Junior winning on fuel mileage in the Batman car at Michigan. Awesome. Jimmy
When
Johnson
when
coming up short
Brad
at
did that
Michigan.
at when Brad did that at, I think it was Kansas, his championship
Yep.
year. That was insane.
Yep.
Watching him clutch the car every corner and not
Yep. And
losing
shut the
any
motor
ground.
off. And yep.
It was awesome. But now we hardly ever get that. And the thing is all these people that are saying that yesterday's race was boring, they're not paying attention to the right things. Every time they showed Larson, he was in traffic trying to figure out how to get around lap cars. He had a hell of a time with Ryan Preece every time he caught him.
Yep. And
And
if
my
Ryan
question
Newman
in
had
my
been out there yesterday, rolling roadblock, the enforcer.
my my question in my head was, why can't Preece be good enough the entire run to so this never has to be a thing?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
if he's this good and can keep ahead of the leader this well, why doesn't he do this
Well,
before he
I
gets
mean,
going?
to me, it tells me they're just running half-assed the rest of the time is what they're
yeah.
doing. And then they
Well,
run harder, like, oh shit, I can't get lapped. Then they run hard. I'm like, then why don't you run hard the whole time,
Yep.
or at least step it up some and with more of an effort on that?
but
Yeah.
yeah, like the thing is they people keep on saying it was a bad race. It wasn't a bad race. It's just every now and then, and we've had two Bristol races in a row where a car unloaded and it whooped your ass.
Yeah.
Deal with it. That's NASCAR racing. That's racing in general.
I mean,
What
what
do
would
you
they have
think
said?
happened?
No, go ahead,
Okay.
Blake. I'm sorry.
What do you think would have happened in F1 the last few years? Max Verstappen has whooped the field because
Oh
their
yeah.
cars were better.
He
Well,
won every
now,
race but one season.
yeah,
You
and
know?
now McLaren has caught him,
Yep.
and that's how racing works.
Yep.
So that's just how people saying that. Oh well, he dominated. Well, yeah, he dominated, but Denny was right behind him the whole damn time.
Yeah.
Yep. One mistake and Denny was there. The best guys were still up front.
Yeah.
There's a number of factors that attributed to yesterday specifically. but I do think the problem is bigger than that. But I personally didn't have a problem watching it. Was it a barn burner of a race? No, I felt like it was a typical NASCAR race. I didn't feel like it wasn't like watching any race I haven't been there in person to watch before, and I left pissed off. Like, why did I come to Bristol? I still think it's amazing because all the cars are on top of each other, and one mistake. I mean, those guys are that good. One mistake, and you have a massive crash. The problem that prevents that, or the key ingredient that prevents that, is the cars are so tough. You saw it when Briscoe bumped who did he bump out of the way? Stenhouse. When he bumped Stenhouse out of the way, up off the bottom groove. Well, Stenhouse's car didn't just shoot up way out of the way, and it certainly didn't spin out. And why didn't it spin out? Well, one, it's on traction compound. Two, he's got four, 20 plus inch wide tires or 30 inch or whatever they are that are twice as wide as what we used to have. Okay. So if I've got more grip and less power and more downforce than I had, and the car's stiffer, then when you hit me, I'm not going anywhere. So you're not going to be able to spin anybody out unless you plow into them. And that's no longer bump and run. That's just straight stupidity on display. So they've taken the bump and run away from them. Well, I mean, again, I don't fault the drivers, and I certainly don't fault the track. I don't feel like blaming Bristol's fair. I think that's a NASCAR problem. NASCAR made this car super rigid. We know it from the concussions. We know it from the redesigns of the front and rear clip and all the things they did. You made this car, and I don't know if it was an effort to make it. So teams spent money on parts, or they were more usable, or whatever. But either way, when you run in the back of somebody, it doesn't do anything but propel them forward. Okay, well, if you do that, you definitely ain't gonna get the bump and run action of old Bristol back, even if you do paint the bottom two lines with, the stickiest PJ1 you've ever seen, and then, monkey jizz or whatever else to like make them not go anywhere.
Monkey
They're
jizz.
not gonna spin
Wow.
out. So,
You've been thinking about monkey jizz again?
Yep, I got those monkeys up the road from me. Sticky stuff. Gotcha. So, but yeah,
Well, it's been a good 20 episodes, guys.
Yep. We always try and get canceled.
Peter's going to be calling you now.
But yeah, Peter, no monkeys were harmed in the taping of this show.
But I mean, you talk about, people saying it was a boring race. What if the caution flag comes out with Blaney has the whole field a lap down? I mean, it possibly could have changed the whole complexity. I mean, that's part of the excitement. Was that going to happen?
I was talking to my mom during that point. Right when Larson got the second, I said, "Okay, I would love a caution right now." And she's like,
"Oh yeah, just be three of them."
And she's like, "Why?" I said, "Well, listen." I said, "Larson's in the free pass, so he would be able to pit with Blaney,
right?
Yep, and he would be lined up right beside Blaney because he was the lucky dog. True. Well, everybody else would wave around and be on older tires,
right?
So it literally would be between him and Blaney,
right?
I said, that
racing
would be
through the field from the
back. And she's like, "I've never heard you want a caution out when your driver was a lap down." Like, well, you're second a lap down. That's a bit different.
I was thinking about that, and then I was thinking about like, okay, if he were to trap them all a lap down, and we get it, and everything flips, and just the way it was going, I was like, man. He could how does that think about the old school chaos if we had to do single file restarts and all the lap cars line up on the inside and you got Ryan Blaney here on the by himself, you versus the train, good luck. They all go
ain't nobody letting him in.
No, he had to bulldoze his way in. He loses 20 spots on the restart and he's the leader, because everybody's like, oh hell no, I'm getting my lap. That would be I was just thinking, like that, if we had that old rule back, just amazing what that would have done just for that again, because they all lined up on the bottom. They had all been in the PJ1 and he wouldn't have. He'd have been on ice while they all go.
My big issue with the whole thing was it was overly apparent. And you guys will all get this. We've all watched it long enough that you guys will understand exactly what my comment means, but the fan that they're trying to attract now has no idea why, with 65 laps to go or whatever in the hell it was it Suarez or whoever in the hell it was 2 laps down, came out and took the fastest lap away from Larson or Allmendinger, whoever, but 2 laps down. You're telling me that just goes to prove they're not fucking running flat out the entire. They're not.
Well, he ended up top 10.
Yeah.
He was
I
2 laps down at the time because Blaney hadn't pitted.
I get that, but you come out under a pit cycle, and you miraculously out of nowhere, right at the end of the race, almost, and you set the fastest lap
Yeah.
from somebody like Larson that was running a clean air all day. You set the fastest lap in dirty air.
Well, we don't know what was in front of him when he came out, though. I mean,
Yeah.
he
That
could have
just
come
seemed
out and clean track. It's possible.
that just seemed awful weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It pissed me off because it ruined a max points day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn it, at 1 point.
A damn one
but
point.
Hey, he missed the playoffs by or missed the
Oh yeah.
championship by 1 point.
Well,
So you never
he
know.
got the fastest lap at Coda when he finished 32nd. So
Yeah.
There you go.
But,
They balanced out.
I will say, to that point, looking at it, I wish you look at it now, like I can't think of the last time other than this. So we got to the next gen. I can't think of the last time we had green flag pit stops at that track because with the steel body cars, when you touch each other with the splitter, unlike now, the wheels are so far inset where before they would be out and you'd have the roll fenders and everything. They don't cut each other's tires down. So again, you don't have people spinning out from down tires unless they just run too low air pressure, which they've figured that out now, where they could be on without blowing the bead and everything. So if we again, as a byproduct of the car, the old car, we had all these cautions. Well, we had the cautions because when they touched, not only do they knock things in, but they cut tires down. Well, tires create cautions. Pit under caution, then we line back up and we go again, and then you get a couple more cautions. And well, again, the car does not destruct enough, which is unfortunate for the financial cost of the teams. That it's not destructive enough, that it needs to be more destructive, which would make them have to spend more. But that's the only way you're going to get at short track racing. Those things. The weakest piece can't be the toe link. That's not a sufficient. We need something else to break instead of the toe link so they can keep driving, just come in and change tires instead of just going to the garage and replace a stupid rod that's like this damn long.
Right.
But to me, that's not where the weakest point should be. It should be the tire. But the tire needs more sidewall and the body needs to have enough flex to be able to do that. And we're just not there. But so all right. Any other observations from Bristol?
I've got a few.
Go ahead.
My first thing is Spire. So
Yep.
Spire ran top 5 with 2 cars, the 7 and the 77 for most of the race.
Mm-hmm.
They looked really good. The 71, however,
McDowell
was like 3 or 4 laps down and in nowhere close to the same zip code. How can you have a car in the same stable just that far off? And he's the guy you brought over to try to be the leader, and you kind of look at him now and go, maybe that was a bad mistake.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think RFK has the same problems too, because I mean, Brad is running way in the back, and his other 2 cars are in the top half of the field routinely, and he's in the 30s.
Yeah.
Of course, he was 14, 15 most of the day yesterday, but other than that, I mean, he's not even close to Busher and Priest.
Well, we watched the tires that were when they weren't treating the track, and hold on. I guess this was it under the first year of the next gen? Yeah, the first and second year of the next gen, Brad and Busher were lights out there.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
They were like stupid fast. So I don't know what's changed there. But I will say, with the softer tires on Saturday, if we had the tire wear with that 10 degrees of difference in track temperature overall or day temperature, I think Brad would have had something to show him there because he was 6th in practice when the tires were under wear, and Joey was up there too. There were some cars. I think some guys prepared for the other side and got caught off guard. I think there's definitely possible to that. Kind of like last year, they went in to the fall expecting the spring, but I'm surprised that more cars or teams didn't put enough adjustability into their car. Maybe they can't. I don't know. To be ready for the fall race versus the spring race from last year. You could end up with this other race, and you could tell that the 5 team came prepared for either direction. The 11 team came prepared for either direction. The 45 did. The 54 learned from their mistakes. So
he looked good all yesterday.
Prepared well. Yeah.
I'm
I
I'm pretty
go
I'm
ahead,
pretty
Chris.
sure I'm pretty sure Brad came set up for the spring race last year where he finished third.
Yep.
They were hoping for the same tire degradation, and he finished third in that race.
Mhm.
Yep. In my fantasy picks with my dad's league, I picked Bowman, Brad, and who was my third? Bowman, Brad, and I don't remember. But I was like, okay, Brad should do well. Bowman, and Stenhouse. All three of which, or two of the three, raced in the era where tire management was important, and then just Bowman was doing good on both setups. So I was like, okay, he'll probably be all right. Well, Bowman had his engine troubles, no fault of his own. That happens with this two race engine rule. But I think the other two, but once we swung the other direction, they just didn't have the adjustability in their cars. What I'm thinking happened. So, um, but yeah, overall, I didn't agree with the. I think there's a problem to what Jeff is saying in the teardown, but I don't think, just like he said, Darlington was a stinker, and he said this was a stinker. I think it points to a bigger problem with the picture. The media is responsible for painting the races however they're going to paint them. Well, if you paint every race is with artificial excitement all the time, then you're setting yourself up for failure because it's an unnatural expectation. So, just like the people that have become all these F1 fans and they watch Drive to Survive and think that's like real F1. No,
Yeah.
that's the behind the scenes. If you actually went and watched the races, they watch Drive to Survive and they call that watching the race. If you actually go watch the race on the Saturday or Sunday, it's boring as shit for most of the time because whoever starts out front or in that top three is going to win that race unless the team just fucks up the strategy. And that's guaranteed every time.
Why
And
you gotta bring up Ferrari like that?
right? Look, it's not their fault that they went and
It's been a
hired,
hard couple of years.
my guy. I really thought
But
Hamilton was going to do well, but it's just not. I'm just not feeling it, unfortunately.
you brought up the 48 engine,
Yeah,
and it started to
Cookie
become
Monster. Cookie Monster.
a thing where engine trouble is almost every weekend, it seems.
yeah.
So are the teams pushing the engines farther than what they used to, do you think? Or is it all the what you just said, the two engine rule or the two race rule, I mean?
I mean, I think the teams are trying to squeeze everything they can out because I mean, you saw a definite apparent difference with the horsepower that Ford has had since last year when they switched to this new Mustang body and everything. I mean, they've definitely, obviously on the straight line speed, they've always had good stuff, but I feel
Yeah,
like
that
Ford has come
Robert
with
Yates
more power.
horsepower is
Yeah. And I mean, they're trying to
now.
find every little thing they can. So, I mean, as they're tweaking it, I'm sure they're just pushing it a little bit more. And then this is one of those tracks. They didn't do any shifting yesterday other than, the original
Well, some teams
restart.
did. I know Kyle Busch was shifting and Larson wasn't.
So, again, something that used to never happen at Bristol. But I do think that plays a role in it because it's a clutchless shift now. So I'm wondering how much that wears and tears on the pistons and the rockers and things like that. So I'm sure it's on the lifter. I'm sure it's tons of different things that wear into it, but I do think their inability to tear them down, obviously, to save themselves money, in turn is causing more failures. But then you have the gearing that they can pick from so many gears per weekend. I'm sure they're trying to find whatever they can.
So with that, I've got two questions. One's for Brad. Brad, does Penske use Roush Yates engines, or do they have their own?
The last I knew, I thought they were using the Roush Yates one, but
Okay.
I'm
From what
not
I
real certain, to be honest with
All of
you.
Ford uses Roush.
Yeah, I was going to say from what I understood, it was all of Ford uses Roush
Okay.
Yates.
Just like all
So
of Toyota uses TRD,
TRD,
who, and then I'm pretty sure all of Chevy uses the
ECR.
ECR partnership they now have,
no,
or they're still
Hendrick has their own engine shop.
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
They do partner with Richard Childress
Hendrick,
now.
Hendrick, Spire, and one other team I can't remember who uses Hendrick. Everybody else is use RCR,
Okay,
ECR.
I'm surprised,
Um,
but
with the engine issue, everybody saw the 48 going around at low speed, blue smoke popping out for had to be 40 laps. your all's thoughts on NASCAR not black flagging a car that's about to. I mean, I'm shocked it didn't explode and put oil down, but like not being proactive and going, okay, your car's done, get it off the damn track.
I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand why the smoke was only coming out the left side pipes. Well, yeah, because they have exhaust comes out both sides on these now. So the blue smoke is only coming out the left side, which means that's where you have a cylinder going bad. Why the hell didn't they at least make him come down pit road, see what cylinder it was? Because you can spray water on the friggin' exhaust manifold, see what cylinder's down, because that's the one that's not going to be hot or as hot, and just unplug the damn plug wire on it so it's not firing anymore. You still go out and run on 7 cylinders.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's an outstanding point. I'm surprised.
And not take a chance on oiling down the damn track.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought that was stupid. I mean, we've seen them. We watched them do that for years growing up. That's what they used to do.
My viewpoint on it was he's sitting there, he's running the low line, his teammates leading the race on the low line. And you have a chance that every 8 to 10 laps when he's coming around to lap you to blow up, oil down the track, and wreck your teammate because you're making laps for no damn reason. Your car's done. Just get it off the damn track.
And my thought on that was too, I'm like, as the team, like, why not make your car just pull off? Because that it's not going to get any better.
Yeah.
All you're doing is risking on causing more damage to that motor, the rest of the car, other cars on the track. Why not just pull it off? You know, they're always talking about cutting cost. Why leave him out there to potentially cause more damage to that motor and the car and whatever else? Like, why not just bring him in? It's not going to run any better.
You can certainly race at Bristol on 7 cylinders. We've seen people do it before, but if you're going to do it, I would have done what Chris talked about. Otherwise, I agree with you, Brad. Like the whole lack of team heads up thought on that. Looking back at it, if this is for, we come back here in the fall for the championship. This is a cutoff race. If that happens and he does blow a motor and it takes Larson out and now he misses the round, like you deserve all the flack you get for that.
High five to the face.
Overall, yep. Like you deserve that right in the face because that's just bad team management overall. Looking at the big picture, you have an opportunity to win. Let's not take ourselves out of it.
Yeah, I just kept thinking, I'm like, it's why, like just.
And I mean, I criticized Byron at Darlington for racing Hocevar like an idiot. Like, know who you're racing, know what's going on. I feel like that was I didn't know in the moment what you told me, Blake, about the air bubble. I just was when I watched Larson smack the wall with like less than 10 to go. I'm like, what are you fucking doing? Why are you pushing so hard? I'm like, you're racing like old Larson. We don't do that anymore. We win. We don't do that.
For the people listening that may not have heard him, they asked him, I believe it was Jamie McMurray asked him post race. They said, "What was you doing there?" And he said, "These cars have an odd bubble of air going on." And he said, I charged the corner like I had been, and I was trying to get by Brad, and I think he said he came in like a tire length lower or whatever than he had been. And when he did, he got in that bubble, and it makes the car extremely loose just out of nowhere. And that's what happened in that moment. He got in that bubble of air from Brad, and just the car took off.
Now, I will say that happens in the sim too. So, like, I've played this track on iRacing with this car. I've played it in the super old sim NASCAR 03 with this car and with the old car. And I've been coming up out of Dover's corner and Bristol, which are both very similar, how you come up out of that deep angled corner and been behind somebody. And all of a sudden, the car just fucking takes off to the wall out of nowhere. And I've been looping and hooking the corner, no problem. And whether it's on fresh tires or worn tires, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, it's just like off it goes. I'm like, what the hell just happened? You hear the tires break loose now.
I have the same issue on NASCAR Heat 5 at Dover.
And so, I mean, I could understand, and obviously I'm not a real race car driver. I just play one in the video game, but I can see what he's saying there because, I mean, at the time, like my outside observation, like I said, was like, what the hell are you doing? You got this race well in hand. Don't pull a Byron. You're better than Byron. Don't be Byron. And because like I took a lot of flack for saying Byron was stupid at Darlington, and I stand by that. I think he was stupid the year before when he was, no, and same thing with Larson and some of these other guys. What At the end of the day, you know the tendencies of some of these guys. You know who's going to race you hard. Your Austin Dillons, your Hosevars, your younger guys that don't necessarily have the respect or have the experience or don't know what to do in some of these situations and how desperate and what they're willing to do. But when you're in control of the race, don't put yourself, don't shoot yourself in the foot. That was so when I saw it the first, and he took off toward the wall, I'm like, you fucking idiot. Like nobody is near you, and you got like 5 laps to go, and you're gonna wreck the damn car, break a toe link, and we're gonna lose this race
Mm-hmm.
because you couldn't be patient. And I was thinking the same thing. With we were at Darlington last week, right?
Yep.
Yeah, at Darlington when Byron was passing Hocevar and like lapping the field with the from out front. I'm like, what are you doing? You are so far out in front of them. You do not have to pass these two idiots going down the straightaway right here, right now. Like, don't be
You,
stupid.
you brought up a couple drivers' name there I want to talk about real quick. So Austin
Yep.
Dillon.
Yep.
At one point, Larson keys out and goes, what's his spotter's name? Anyway, he says, "Hey, if you could get Austin out of the way,
Oh,
that'd be
Larson
nice."
spotter.
Yeah, Tyler Mon.
Tyler
He
Martin.
says, "Tyler, if you could get Austin out of my damn way, it'd be nice." Well, I looked at the scoring monitor and I'm like, he ain't moving out of your way. He was running 10th. You're trying to lap
Yeah.
10th spot. Like
Yeah.
Yeah. He
he's
ain't
not
moving.
moving out of the way.
Moving out of the way is not in
Yeah,
RCR's pedigree. Don't matter who's
yeah,
in the
No.
car. They
yeah.
don't.
So,
They're not the
but
cordial fast.
it's one thing if he was already a lap down, but he was not a lap down. So no, he's not going to move out of your damn way. You know, he was
Yeah.
in his way for probably most of that run, and he was worried that Denny was going to catch him. I get it, but I was like, he ain't moving, dude. He's running
No.
10th.
Yeah.
So the second thing is I'm very critical, and as you are too, we all are really of Byron. And man, I was watching yesterday, and he's in the top five again. As much as I can't stand the guy, he's steady Eddie in the top five every damn week.
Yep.
Every week, he's right there. He may not have a winning car, but that team is very they finish every race. Like they just don't have a problem unless somebody else causes it.
Yep.
It's pretty remarkable what they're doing this year.
So what I see out of Byron is what I saw out of Gordon when he was racing Jimmy Johnson.
Yep.
And basically Larson's Jimmy Johnson, Byron's Gordon. Jimmy Johnson goes up there and wins a bunch. When he's not winning, he's not having such a good day, but because he wins so much, it doesn't matter. Byron's over there like Gordon was, where he somehow managed to lose the championship twice with more fucking points than him. And he's just like, I mean, I don't have it pulled up, but I think he was just under 100 bonus points essentially before this race started. And that is insane that where he's
Oh, the
at.
stage points.
Yeah, and stage points. Let's look at where he's
Yeah.
at. Okay, he's still there. He's at 90 stage points right now out of the first 9 races.
Well, seeing that Larson swept the stages, yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure he
and
didn't go
Larson
anywhere there.
swept. If Larson hadn't swept the stages, it's different. So Larson cut into that. He's at 72, but I mean, and Blaney's at 92. So that's the first time anybody all season has passed Byron in stage points all season. So I mean, that's something, and he's still out there solidly because, like you said, he's just ticking away. I'm
Mhm.
curious if he keeps this up, he's going to end up with a super low, 6 or 7, at 7 position average finish, maybe even fifth, the way he's going. And it's truly impressive. Like definitely impressive what he's been able to do. He's got the second most laps led of anybody this season so far. His teammate's the only one with more. Larson's at 503. So, and Hamlin's right behind
Well,
him at 308.
you can't really give him that because I mean it was because of Bristol only.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying. Oh yeah, when you lead one whole race and Byron basically led a whole race, so we're even.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that's all I've got on Bristol itself, like the racing. We can talk about the car if you want to a little bit more. We can definitely talk about uh, you know, so your guy won the 5
Yes.
team, and so you emailed to the we'll shift topics here for a minute to tariffs. I feel like we're never going to stop talking about them till they come down to whatever, but not to derail the whole thing, but I am curious where we're going to go from here now because of the email you got back from Sharon. So you reached out to Sharon, it's Monday. Usually the race wins are up. Hey, why don't I have a race win? And essentially the context from her email, Sharon works at Lionel for those who don't enter. If you're not a RCCA member and you order third party, if you become an elite member, Sharon is basically head of the customer relations group. She's awesome. And a lot of good people there on the customer service side of things. But Sharon is great about getting back to us. So she got back to you quickly and basically said they're in a holding pattern, more or less, because of the tariffs. And they don't know what's going to happen, which are up to like 146% right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and last week we mentioned the price increases, so I can completely understand it. At this point, the point I wanted to make was if you can't sell the cars for the season for what's race winning, I don't know how you're going to stay in business if you got no product to sell. But at the same time, I don't know how they can sell any product when they don't know how to price it because they can't even pick a lane to sell it in. So
Well,
I don't know what happens to the business if we don't get this figured out sooner or later.
the thing is I don't understand this part of it. I get that you have to raise, you have to, you have to charge us for the tariff. I get that. It's cool, whatever. But why did the race win? I know. Why did the race win just go up? The elite race win just went up $60. Why? There's no
Yeah.
reason. There is absolutely no reason. Just you can't blame tariffs because the tariff would be before that price.
Yeah.
So they didn't give us an explanation on that. Now, if you're going to make it $170 and that includes the tariff, that sort of makes sense in a way, but
Yeah.
they didn't say anything like that. We're just raising race wins, but why? You're raising.
Because they're bringing the quality back.
No, they're not. Shut up. To all of our dedicated loyal followers, this is Chris's last show.
Until the next show.
Yeah.
Till next, till the week
He
after.
will. He will not be with us next week.
So yeah, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I just thought that was interesting. I'm curious what that's going to mean for future pre-orders in general. If you can't offer them, they did say they would revisit it later, but let's say we get, 4 months into this. China's pretty stubborn. We're whatever percentage of their economy. They don't necessarily need us. We don't need them. So for a business like Lionel, who it's literally solely, other than the shipping portion in Charlotte, all the production takes place in China. So their entire business model hinges on China being able to ship all their shit in. So they're in big trouble. So if they don't offer any more cars, today Sharon says they could go back and retro offer it. You gonna go back and offer 10 wins worth of stuff if we get, 2, 3 months into this and they still haven't, or they finally come back down? How much interest is there going to be in there then from the fan groups over the initial excitement? I think all those cars didn't end up DNPing because I don't think
Yeah, like half of it's gone immediately if you do that.
Yeah,
Well,
people have forgotten.
Larson's got a pretty loyal fan base when it comes to collecting his race wins. But I think what you'll lose out on is maybe the Xfinity win, and
Yeah.
maybe we'll just not get it. But I have every race win of his that they've ever produced. I'm gonna still order the Xfinity car. I'm still gonna order the Bristol win. They never made his first truck win, and there's been a couple Xfinity wins, but the wins that they have made, I have I've got them. So like if they offer it and if it makes mock, I'm getting it.
I'm
But
just thinking the
you know,
numbers they have to have in the initial order that you usually get the day after with the excitement based around it's in recent memory. And if
yep,
you come back in 3 months and say his Bristol wins up for order, I agree. He's a unique case. But let's say Josh Berry wins again, and it's in, we're 3 months into this tariff thing. Do you think his win makes MOQ at that point? I don't know. I don't really think so because I think people will have moved on from that event and we're in
I
the
think
whatever the next
the
is.
biggest person you could figure out on this one would be Danny Hamlin stuff. His stuff already has a problem making it at times. So
Yeah.
his
So in,
his his race win for Darlington for the standard elite is $170. I wonder if that car will
That's
make
insane.
MOQ.
That's crazy.
yeah. And we've seen in the past where sponsors have stepped in, or Brent has stepped in and bought a portion of a run, or a driver or a team has stepped in and bought a portion of a run to help it make MOQ. But I mean, the numbers you would need, and with these tariffs, I mean, you're not talking about the smaller cost, and Lionel's not going to be afford to give them like some massive discount because they've still got to pay the tariffs going in. So, I mean, would a team step in and pay double the cost to save a merchandise item? I don't think so.
Mm-mm.
We're not talking about screen printing a t-shirt here. We're talking about cars that have to come through with 100 or 200 or 300, whatever it gets to, percent markup on them. But
I think the only person that might would be a junior, seeing that Lionel sponsors his podcast. Other than that, I don't see the teams making enough money from diecast sales anymore that
yeah,
they can give two shits less.
Well, I can tell you Hendrick does.
yeah, they've said
Well, because
open
because
discussion.
they do the exclusives though, isn't it?
That's my point.
Yeah.
They had his they they had his stuff out 10 minutes after he won Xfinity and 10 minutes after he won Cup. I got a text message, buy exclusive merchandise and blah blah blah. It's like,
Yeah.
and then you're waiting on Lionel, and I'm like crickets, and that's why I checked Lionel this afternoon, and I'm like, I'm emailing Sharon
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's not like Lionel not to have a Larson went up almost immediately. So
Well,
that's why I emailed her. So kind of glad I did, but it's just and Chris called me out on this on the phone earlier. He said I wasn't going to give you the satisfaction, but I did call it when we talked about it. They should do a holding pattern. That would be the best thing to do because you need to figure out what happens with the tariffs before you do any more pre-orders because you may not have a company in 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, once all your product comes in, you're out of shit to sell. So if there's no demand for new product because it's too expensive to order it, I genuinely do worry that they'll go under. And the being that there's no competition, we would just be as collectors. I mean, you look at the wall of cars behind Brad here, and you've seen, some of my stuff and Blake's and Chris's, and so for the stuff we do like to order, or for somebody like Kevin who wants to get in, uh, you know, it would suck to see this entire hobby that we've enjoyed go away for the people that are, invested in the current drivers today. That would be
Mhm.
very unfortunate, but it's we may be way out there, but I don't see it as being unrealistic. China doesn't seem like they want to negotiate. So, uh, for businesses like Lionel, I'm genuinely worried for them right now, but we'll see. Because it takes time to shift manufacturing. You got to find a factory, get all the tooling, all those kind of things brought over here. So that's all I wanted to talk about with that. I just
well,
wanted to bring that up that was an
well,
uncertainty. Go ahead.
unfortunately, there's plenty of tooling inside NASCAR.
There definitely is. Maybe they can go borrow
They
some from the
they
Steves.
they show us how much how big of tools they are most every week.
Yeah. So I agreed with you. I didn't want to forget to mention, but I was impressed with the Spire guys. I think you're finally seeing, at least with 2 out of the 3, what we thought we would see by them bringing over Brad's guy, Matt
McCall.
I don't know why I wanted to call him Matt Borland. I don't know why, but because that's from I was thinking of
Newman's not around anymore,
yeah,
bud.
Newman's got
He's a lot
but
thinner than Matt Borland.
but Matt McCall and with Rodney Childers, and they finally have some consistency over there now that they have their pit crew and they're not loaning people out to Larson's group, which I did want to, sometimes that's what needs to happen, so for those of you that follow in the news, Cliff Daniels basically took the Sevens pit crew, brought him over, and sent his guys basically back down, like you send a guy from a farm team in the MLB back down to the minor leagues. So he took the minor league team, made him his A team, and took his A team and sent him back down to the minor leagues. And you've seen a performance gain on both sides. And
Yep.
sometimes I feel like that's what you need. Maybe the guys become too comfortable. Skip Flores talks about it on Stack of Pennies all the time. Everybody wants to be in the show and on the top car, but maybe sometimes you get comfortable or complacent, whatever the case may be. So it's motivation to go back down there and perform like, no, I deserve to be on that top car. Uh, so because they both
I
had good pit stops, they both ran up front, in the top 10 all day. Um, Impressive overall.
I can't believe I almost forgot this, but with about 150 to go, I thought that my prediction preseason was going to be right. Was Ty Gibbs was coming,
Mhm.
and then his car just stopped coming. I
Yeah.
mean, he did finish third, and Ty Gibbs has come a long way this year because early in the year we were bashing him good, and
Yeah, he could not
he
find
is
he
he
couldn't
is
find
running
four
really
good
good
tires.
now. And so I was telling Chris uh, earlier today. I thought I was with 150 to go. I was like, Ty's coming. I might end up looking like a genius here, but
No, we're never worried about that.
I'm pretty sure you and Alan both picked Larson, if I remember right.
I had I had Denny win in Bristol.
Oh,
He came
you
up
had
one
him winning
spot
back to
short.
back.
Yep. I had him winning Bristol and Chris had him winning Bristol. One. We both did. I didn't think he was going to win earlier like he did. I just didn't see that happening. But
You
I'm
had him
glad he
winning
did.
Darlington last week, so you
Yep. Yep. I did have him winning Darlington. I took that one as a guess, but really I thought it was going to come at Bristol when I was picking him. I was like, I think it's
yeah.
probably going to come at Bristol, but I'm going to take a chance just because anytime he's run the Xfinity series at Darlington, he's got that special line, and then he uses that same line at the Cup stuff for him to run there. So I was pretty happy. The other team I want to give a shout out to is Colleague. They
Yep.
continue to impress. Ty Dillon, AJ Allmendinger, they continue to climb in points, and they continue to impress. I think that then
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Ty finished
Well,
32nd.
he was
He
up
started
there.
good. He was
I don't
12th.
remember what happened when he got knocked down there because he was running well.
Watching Larson's on board, he was getting lapped every 40 or 50 laps.
Well, at one point he was in the top 20, and I'm trying to remember what happened that put him outside of it because he was in the top 20 at one point. I was like, oh damn, he's doing pretty good. Um, just like how AJ was. So I was like,
But
okay.
yeah, AJ ran really good all day. He got the fastest lap of the day. Good for him. Um, Pissed Chris off to no avail, but you know,
I just think it shows. My whole point was that there's still, just like at the restrictor plate tracks, you're putting them in a position, and this is where I was getting where I almost wanted to drive across the damn country and just slap the shit out of Jordan Bianchi. This isn't a this isn't a fucking Goodyear problem.
No.
It should not be a Goodyear problem. And the fact that these guys are going out and just like at the stupid ass restrictor plate tracks with the freaking package we have now, and we're not running 100% is it's just fucking ridiculous. It's just, yeah. I don't know. It pisses me off that, I mean, if we're not going to go out and run to the best of our ability through the entire race, I think that Larson's team had it set up well enough they could play with the field. I mean, that's all he was doing. The entire fucking race, he was just playing with the field.
Is
And I
this
think Denny could get close, but I don't think Denny was ever going to fucking get to him because I don't
Denny
think
said he was
Larson.
trying his hardest, and Larson said he was running about 90% all race.
So that proves it right there.
question I have is this so this is the last race of the first stint, and now we're on an Easter break. We are going to Rockingham, so that's one of the most I'm really looking forward to that race to see how
I'm stoked.
there. But is this the only break we have for the Cup schedule?
Yes,
I feel
it
like
is our
Yep.
only off week.
okay,
Easter
so this is the
weekend.
only off week till the end of the year.
28
Yep.
weeks.
So I feel like we got done pretty early with this. Do y'all want to start our other topic then?
Well, Chris has to go clock out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to clock out and bail.
Okay, no problem. We could save it for another time, but I definitely want to get into all right, we're in the only off week going in. Um,
Well,
won't do one later where we get into who really needed this break and who probably wishes there wasn't a break right now because they're firing on all
yeah.
cylinders. So,
Since we're ending a short track discussion, before we go, I want to say we've always talked the teams. Everybody always talks about we need more horsepower. We need more horsepower.
yep,
And in the All Star race, I've mentioned to you guys off, off live. The All Star race has always been something where NASCAR plays with, packages and whatnot. They need to ask the teams, what can you do right now without sacrificing money,
yep,
and see how much horsepower they can bring to the track and run a higher horsepower package at uh, Wilkesboro in a month from now, because it's not a points race and you can see whether or not horsepower will
It's gonna
fix
make a difference.
short track package at all.
yeah, I agree. I mean, that's so I meant to get into this, and if you've got time, Chris, I want to keep you on to do that. And if you can't, that's okay. But so at the end of in the like you said, the Jordan Bianchi Jeff one, and then Denny talked about it in his. There's a handful of things he thinks they could fix the car with, but NASCAR would have to ask and listen. And you do have to at some point incur costs, and then who's responsible for that cost? Is it the teams, NASCAR, or is it a shared cost? Because I really don't think the track is the problem at Bristol. I mean, if you'd stop putting PJ1 down, I think you'd get back to being good racing there. I do think the car is the problem. We're in our fourth year. We've tried ripping the underbody off. We've tried taking downforce away from it. We have changed, some of the setup stuff and everything else. And we've gone, Goodyear has made numerous tire combinations. We've tried multi-tire, races just like with Formula One, hards and softs. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It just seems to not really move the needle. So at this point, I don't know what they do to fix the car beyond the one thing they haven't tried, which is power. So from your guys' perspective, can they even fix this car? Denny says they can. I honestly don't know if they can, but he would know better than any of us. But I mean, if they're going to fix it, I don't know where you start other than I feel like it has to be so many pieces to fix it. The biggest one to me is not just the softness of the tires, but I've said it from the beginning. I think you need to rip these wheels off and this brake package out completely and go back to smaller brakes. I don't care if you keep a one lug nut wheel and multi-spoke and all that, but just shrink it. Put it back
You're
to a 15
making
or a 16-inch wheel instead of a 20-inch wheel or an 18-inch wheel.
Give us a sidewall back.
Yep, give us the sidewall
you're
back.
making it too hard though. All they have to do with if you're not doing horsepower, all you have to do is bring the cars off the ground.
Well,
Was it bump stops? Is that what they used to use?
the only thing with that is Denny said that the more you bring the front off the ground, the better the car runs because the whole underside is designed to
Okay.
take air from underneath. So that only works if you take the underbody off too, because that's where all the downforce comes from. It's not from the top, it's from
Well,
the bottom.
I'm just going based off what Chad Canal said at Martinsville 3 years ago.
Yeah,
Get
Not
the
just that,
cars off the ground.
but yeah, exactly. Which is weird because it's funny. Denny Hamlin says that it's crazy because it makes the cars run better. It's weird because that's the exact same thing that Chad Canal said. Get the cars off the ground. You want to fix most of the problems that we're having with this car. Get it off the ground. Every time it doesn't matter what podcast you listen to, Mark Martin says, "Get the cars off the ground."
yep,
I mean, how many people have to say it before you finally listen? I
yeah,
mean, I think a great starting point is going to be what you just brought up, which I think is going to be the easiest as far as ultimate cost to incur for the teams and the sport. If they could agree to share the cost on it, leave the package alone at the mile and a half if you have to.
yep.
I don't think I I don't know what would go into it at the super speedways, so I don't know that you could really mess with it at the super speedways. But Gluck was onto something by what he was saying, and Jordan Bianchi was just taking it way out in the fucking left field, which was annoying as hell. I almost couldn't even listen to it because just listening to them go at each other is we need, and I brought this up before. We need to go back to, and I brought it up on one of our previous shows. We need to go back to, yes, short tracks and road courses need a different car than the mile and a half and the super speedways. They do. You need speedway and super speedway cars, and I think you can tentatively make those two cars translate. You can have your speedway and super speedway cars, and then you can have your short track, and you can have your short track or your road course and short track cars. The road courses and the short tracks, if you want to make the racing better, you want to get the separation from the cars, even if you don't change a lot on the cars, change the fucking brake package and give them the smaller fucking wheels with the bigger sidewalls and a smaller fucking tire patch touching the ground. Make them fucking narrower and put the sidewalls back in them. You're going to change every aspect of how those cars handle. Whether it doesn't, the aerodynamics isn't going to mean shit because they're going to have to drive the hell out of them to keep them underneath them. That's going to give you the separation of the guys that can come in and really wheel a car and the guys that can't.
Yeah, I think if you take the tires, if you shrink the diameter of the wheel, which would give Goodyear more room to work on the tire. So it's multiple things. You give Goodyear more room to work to address the problem by shrinking the wheel diameter. You shrink the brakes. Well, that takes a lot of the heat out of the brakes, which is part of the problem now because the tires are so small. When they overheat them, they blow. And there's no interliner, so they blow rotors, they blow tires. These bigger tracks that have a lot of brake. But if you shrink the brakes, it, like you said to your point, it changes the dynamic of you can't go into Martinsville now and brake all the way through the damn corner and not overcook the brakes. You have to start changing. You go back to the old school way of driving in a Martinsville at a Bristol. You back up instead of being able to drive like Kyle admitted in his post race. I charged into the corner. You didn't charge into the corner at Bristol when Kyle Busch was uh, doing those sweeps. You would be letting off just after the start finish line, and you would allow the car to float down in there, and then you would be charging the exit. You wouldn't be charging the entry because that was how you saved your rear tires. That's how you got the car to, get grip coming up out of the corner at Martinsville and at Dover and these places. So it would bring it back to what everybody loved about those
And
places.
that's if you could get it pointed. You couldn't even mat it coming off the corner without blowing the rears off it if you couldn't get the car to point.
Yeah. So I think if you do that, even if you don't get more horsepower, you rip the underbody off, shrink the wheel diameter, which in turn shrinks the brake package, you probably could fix the car. But I think that's the only area left if they're not willing to touch the horsepower. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I think the horsepower would be a good starting point on that as well too. I mean, I think that would be the easiest thing to get to. Um, I don't know. It's kind of like one of those things with me. If it ain't broke after all these years, why do they keep trying to fix something all the time and they keep breaking it more and more and more?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just like the restrictor plates, they keep taking the horsepower out, and it's just, I don't know. I agree with what you were saying. I do think if you add more power to them, I think that a lot of it will go back in the driver's hands because you have a lot more underneath the hood that you're having to work with now, and it can't just be okay. Well, this is what I got. I'll just hammer down and go. It's
Yeah.
also going to factor in a little bit more handling because it's going to have to because you have more horsepower you're having to deal with.
Yep. And numerous drivers have said in the last 3 years of this car, full seasons of this car, and when I drive in the back of you at Martinsville or I drive the back of you at Loudon or something like that, you just drop a gear and go. You don't really lose the power because of the stiffness of the car and the amount of rubber on the ground. Unless I drive through you, you don't get wiped out. If I just drive into you and not through you like Xfinity did, then all I have to do is drop a gear and I'm back on it, and it actually sets you back by doing that. So that's another reason why you don't see the bumper to bumper contact is because it's actually more detrimental to run into somebody than it is helpful at this point. So if it's not going to help me, then I have no reason to make contact because all it does is tear my car up and they just scoot away.
Mm-hmm.
So where on the steel body cars, if I hit you, it crushes in my front nose, it pushes in your rear. That might push it up to the left or to the right. It could really fuck up your handling. It's gonna fuck up mine. It could fuck up my cooling. But you don't get any of that right now. They line up and they just bounce off each other like two rocks.
Yeah, and so I was thinking earlier, like I don't remember the last time I seen literally somebody run into somebody and it pushes their rear deck in or anything. Like I don't see any of that anymore.
It doesn't. It's just bumper bar to bumper bar anymore.
Yeah, that it's just like that. And they just keep going. Like
And
it used to be, you'd hit somebody and you'd at least dent it in somewhat. They don't even do that anymore.
you know, and it's not like the old days where you watch these old Bristol and Darlington cars where they'd run into each other and you had the tube sticking out the bumper.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're big ass. They're almost not blocks, but it's a big ass bumper bar, probably about that big.
And it's got
the
foam
entire
in it.
front and back. Yeah, that
Yeah.
car.
So, which to that point, I'll say, which I was looking at one of these cars. I was going to say something with how they line up and the way the cooling works and everything. The like with the air vents and the composite and all that, like, yeah, you don't see them push back at all. And it's also further reinforced by all that underbody, like it's all kind of like a sandwich. So each piece reinforces each piece. So I was trying to think the only time I've seen anything pushed in initially was in the Camaro's first iteration before they rounded out the front to make it better to push, where it had a more pronounced arrow tip front. And then after they smoothed it out to make it better for pushing, especially because it was basically this point, any bump drafting they did, they just sent somebody one direction or the other, where that was something where Ford excelled and even the Camry excelled, was they had that nice squared up piece directly in the center so they could bump draft really well and push. The Chevys couldn't push. Well, now they can all push. So, again, when you take two flat pieces and put them together, nothing's ever going to change. So, but
Speaking of bumper bars, I can't believe we all forgot about this.
what you got?
How lucky is Brennan Poole after that
Oh my
wreck
God, yeah.
with Sheldon Creed? Sheldon Creed also. Both of them very lucky to walk away from that. That was a very scary wreck at Bristol on Saturday.
Man, I haven't seen
They
a
ripped
rear
that
end
car
housing
open like
come
a tin can. Yeah.
Yeah. And I haven't seen a rear end housing come apart like that in a long time. I mean that was pretty insane.
The thing I was watching when I was watching that wreck happen, I was like, Sheldon Creed, you've been racing here for quite a while. Where the fuck were you coming from? Like, he's been sitting there. Like, what was his?
No, Sheldon's the
what
one
was
that
his
wrecked. It
spotter
was
watching?
Brennan Poole. Brennan
It-
Poole's the one that ran into him.
All right, but I mean, like when you're looking at all these cars, it's like, what was everybody watching when they came? Because like those guys were all still flying by, and he'd been sitting
Yeah.
there a good minute. Like, what are we waiting on?
Sheldon's been sitting there for at least 8 seconds.
Yeah,
And then all of a sudden, here comes Brennan Poole coming in there.
it
Coming
kind
in
of
hot.
reminded me of when Austin Dillon was upside down, and then here comes Brad Keselowski,
Brad.
fucking turn 4
Had to
at
bring that up for
Daytona.
Brad.
Yep, just destroyed. Like, oh my God, like, oh, he's like, hold on, guys, I'm still coming. I got this. So that's kind of
Wait
what
for
that.
me.
It's not completely destroyed yet. Give me 1 second.
We ain't turned. We
Yeah.
ain't, as Tony said, we ain't happy till we wreck the whole damn field. So,
Yep.
but yeah,
I guess that's why you had that Miller sponsor. Hold my beer.
So before we go, we gotta, for our buddy Chip, who's been a frequent guest as of late, his boy Tony won his first Top Fuel, and that was awesome to see that. And I was talking to my dad about this while I was off dropping off some cars that I'd sold. If you don't think Tony Stewart still has it, and just how much of a wheelman he is, and how much passion he has for racing, just because he left NASCAR, you are sorely mistaken. Because that man looked like he just won his first race ever. He was so happy, sitting there with his kid, his wife. That was awesome to watch. It makes
It
me
looked like he might
sad.
have been sad he didn't have a hamburger in his hand, though.
Yeah, or what was it? Some Schlitz, and what the hell was this? He's like some Burger King and Schlitz or some shit like that back in the day.
He got out of that car, and I'm like, how the hell did they fit him in there?
Yeah,
And the bad sad thing is, dude, he's about half the size he was when he's in the cup.
right.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, he's
Holy cow.
he's skinnied up. He's got his routine.
I think you
know,
used the wrong word there. He thinned up a little bit.
Mad, I'm just massive respect to what, okay. Your reaction
now you're
times
making
in a cup car are
massive-
different, but the
massive
respect he's
respect.
put in to fix his,
Massive.
to work
They're
on
making
his,
fat jokes.
yep, massive. Exactly. We're pun on words here, but his massive respect to him knowing that he had to put all the work into his reaction times. He talked about it in some of the different interviews he's done. I just think it's phenomenal to see him go over there to this discipline he's never raced in, and within a matter of years, and we're not talking long term, he's racing against some of the guys that have been doing this their whole life, and he won. It's basically started from scratch. I mean, it's extremely impressive. And the point I made to my dad was like, if I'm NASCAR, yesterday was a major blow to me because
Oh, absolutely.
not just the race. One of your 3-time champions walked away in his unfiltered interview he's done now that he's no longer a team owner that he did earlier this year. He basically said, I still love NASCAR, but I don't like the direction it's going. And so he's no longer there. There's one of your marquee drivers, Hall of Fame inductee, 3-time champion, 2 times under the old format, 1 under the chase format, was a team owner, you can drive anything with wheels. So it's clearly not like I'm not interested in racing anymore. This doesn't get me going. He's still clearly very passionate, but he left your sport and now he's over here building this one, which is good for them, but it's an unfortunate blow to you that you lost this guy that you need. Because the point I made to Mitch earlier today when I was arguing with him, I said, Jack Roush, Rick Hendrick, Richard Childress, Roger Penske, these guys are all in their 70s and 80s. They ain't going to be here forever. You need Tony Stewart. You need Brad Keselowski. You need Denny Hamlin. You need purist racers to own these teams. Well, you're not going to have a series in the near future. So you can't afford to lose guys like that are that passionate and run them out of the sport.
No, the losing Stewart was definitely stupid. It's going to be interesting to see. And I'd like to get Brad's take on this. With Brad now being at RFK, what Gordon's, it's hard to say that Gordon's not going to take over Hendrick.
Well, he is.
He's the second in charge.
I mean, he's going to say he's number 2 guy already.
But so who is that going to be for Penske? I don't know. I mean, Logano's a 3-time champion. I mean, well, I know, but I'm looking at it from the overall understanding the sport, not just understanding the business side that you've been led by Roger, but looking at it from the longevity and somebody that knows the sport inside and out from a racer's perspective. I'm afraid to see Penske's downfall when something happens to Roger.
Yeah,
I worry about that. Because right now,
business will survive, but I am curious what happens to the racing enterprise and who's going to take that reign.
Because honestly, I don't see Cindric. I just don't see him filling that role and being successful.
Mm-hmm.
But you're a Penske guy, what do you think there, Brad?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I wish they would kind of bring like Rusty in a little bit too, and just of course Rusty's in his 60s now or whatever it is, but still a fairly young guy. Bring him in and let him lead and guide to the future, because he does bring that old school stuff from the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s when it was a lot more hard nosed racing and where it was a lot more in the driver's hands, and they were extremely successful and all that. I think you bring some of those OG guys back in and let them at least help pave the way for the future and keep her going, because it's like all you guys said, these guys aren't going to be around forever.
The sad part is, I mean, you listen to comments from somebody like Mark, which I mean, you can see, I've had plenty of conversations with you through Facebook. Mm-hmm. You look at the guys like Rusty. Mark is active enough in the sport that I think Mark still holds weight, but I don't think Rusty wants anything to do with it, honestly.
No,
he just doesn't.
He don't come around that much.
Yeah. No, he's too far removed, and I really the couple interactions that I've ever had with Rusty, he's a lot like Stewart. Either he was going to be all in, or he got to the point where everybody fucking pissed him off enough. He said, "Fuck you," and I'm gone.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it ended up. And I don't think you'll get him back now. Just like Stewart. No. I don't think we'll get him back now.
Yeah, that's just wishful thinking on my end, though, because
No,
like I said, I was a
I get
Rusty
it.
guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you though, Chris. And, just it's a shame though, man. You're running off good people that could be really beneficial for the future, and they just like it's kind of like taking people for granted, and by the time you keep doing that, they're gone and they ain't coming
Yeah.
back.
No,
That's a
yeah.
shame.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see Rusty more involved, but I agree. I think he's kind of like Tony in that, well, first off, I don't think Rusty, being the hard-nosed racer that he was, guy that crawls under his cars, works on his own stuff, understood shocks, springs, like I don't think he likes kit cars by any means, first off. I mean, this guy was a real mechanic,
Hmm.
just
And
like Mark.
I think
And
that's where Mark
so
has a hard time.
I think
Mark,
they understand the evolution of where we're at, but I think even if you get past the kit car aspect, I don't think he likes the fact you know, I've only ever had one when I was a kid. I think we met him once, I think, in like a short hospitality thing. But listening, you can tell by listening to his handful of stuff the last few years when he was doing the radio stuff. I don't think he has a very high opinion of where we're taking things either. Just like Mark, he's got a lot of complaints about the way we run the racing and the openness of drivers, what makes a driver special, what makes a Kyle Busch, a Kyle Busch, a Kyle Larson, a Kyle Larson, a Daniel Hemrick, a Daniel Hemrick, because all of them have something they do that's unique. Whether you're the best guy or the worst guy, everybody's got something they do on a given Sunday that's better than somebody else. And
and
by
you're letting
opening
everybody
up the
see it.
data, you have basically made them all have to drive the same. So you've taken that uniqueness away and
Hmm.
you gave them a camera. So it doesn't matter if the guy behind them's better. I'll just arrow block them till their shit's worn out. Or, you know, and I don't think the older guys like that because that's not the racing they grew up in. And I don't have a problem with their opinion of that either. I think that's probably their genuine opinion based on the fact that Stewart left and still competitive. Rusty's doing his own thing.
The
Uh,
the sad the sad part is they're absolutely correct. Other than the fucking car we have now doesn't allow for it either. You can't just let somebody go now and think you're going to get it back later down the road.
no,
The cars don't race that way anymore either.
no, I'm, I'm,
But I'll talk to you guys later, though, man.
yeah, I know you got to go. I appreciate you being on here, making time for us and
Oh
everything,
yeah,
as always. And we'll chat with you. We'll set up another time because I definitely want to get into like, all right, we're only 9 races in, but I'd like to get everybody's thoughts on a season in review as much of this as we can, just kind of where we think things are going to go.
See you, Chris.
We'll let you go,
oh
Chris.
yeah. You
See,
guys have a good
Chris.
night. Thank you, man.
See you. But yeah, that's my bigger concern is, you see these people passing away all the time lately, some unexpectedly, whatever, what's going to happen to Penske? We know that Austin's going to take over Childress, waiting in the wings. He's preparing himself for a leadership role. We know Gordon's going to take over Hendrick. That succession plan and everything. Who's going to take over Joe Gibbs Racing? Both of his sons are gone. Who's going to lead that ship? Is Ty going to have to exit his career early to go run it? Does he have the maturity for that, or is he going to have a bunch of basically, elder statesmen that guide him till he's old enough to understand what to do with it? These guys are, mountains, not mountains. They are innovators of their time and the way they built their race teams, and it's going to be massive losses to the sport when they're gone. But somebody has to take their spot, and I think it's great for Jack Roush and the Fenway group that they got Brad. And I think that was a major mistake for Roger to let him go because Brad's a very, you know, he's, I mean, ultimately, Brad's level of detail and the thought he puts into things is just so unique, kind of like Denny, and the way he looks at things and processes things. I mean, and you can look at it with his side business, the aeronautic stuff he does, and the defense, the machining, and you know, he's very multifaceted. He's a big picture guy. I think that was a mistake. I get that Roger doesn't want to give up a portion of his business, but I think that was a mistake to lose Brad. I think Brad
Yeah,
was a
I
major
agree.
asset to your company. You long term, I think they'll come back to regret that. But or we might end up with some super team, Penske Roush Racing, Penske Keselowski Racing. Who knows?
And the Wood Brothers.
And Wood Brothers.
So, so Brad, I have to ask, when that happened, how did that affect you when Brad
Yeah.
left? when Brad
Oh,
left
I was
Brad,
pissed over that one. I was pissed. You know, I don't know. I mean, the older I've gotten, I kind of look at it, I was like, you got to do at some point in time, you got to do what's best for you. And as a fan, as a Penske guy, love it or hate it, you got to respect it though, because if you don't, then you're just being selfish on as a person. But for a while I was a little upset over that. But I've basically just rolled with whoever was in the two car. And then once
I'm
he
sorry to hear
left, then
that.
I kind of expanded it. Yeah, I appreciate it. Kind of expanded it to the whole team, and you know, I don't know. I eventually got over it, but yeah, and I still root for him
So
on Sundays.
there's no part of you that wanted to follow him.
No, no, because like I said, man, I was a rusty guy when I first come in, and I couldn't just hop ship like that after 20 years of being a Penske guy.
Yeah,
To Roush like that, and
that's how I am as a Hendrick guy. Johnson,
yeah, I just
like
couldn't
See,
do it.
Tyrant.
see,
Much as I want, one over the other. Yeah,
I was Robert Yates all the way from when I was 3 uh up till Rudd left. When Rudd left, the writing was on the door that Yates was falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
When Rudd left and Haviland left, I was like, well, I'll follow Haviland, and went with Jay McMurray to 42, and I became a Ganassi guy. Well, I followed Ganassi through McMurray, through Casey Mears for 1 year, which was a horrible year. That was a terrible year.
Great one. Real
Oh my
good.
God, real good.
Real
And
good.
then Montoya came in, and I enjoyed the Montoya years. A lot of people like to make fun of him, but I have really enjoyed the Montoya years. Just his tenacity that he showed each week to try to be the best he could be with crap cars, and then
yeah,
got me to Larson. So Larson got me out of Ganassi, and then Ganassi left, so it kind of worked out. So
Yeah.
yeah. I would love to. Brad's a very philosophical, talker. At some point, I would love for them to do like a 30 for 30 of Brad's career or something along a documentary that there's the Penske side, but I want to know how the conversation with Roush happened. Like, did Roush, when Brad, like, okay, I'm leaving and I'm open, but I'm looking to ownership. I'm curious how long Roush's, lack of performance played into Jack's ability, because I mean Jack's another one of those guys. I built this from scratch. I'm a racer. I know how to build cars, everything. Like that's why him and Rusty gelled, or him and Mark and Rusty and Roger and like again, same thing, that old school era of guys, Richard and Dale. I'm curious how that conversation got started just because I like the business aspect of it. What made Roush realize, okay, I'm reaching the end. I've got to, it's either watch it die or I die before it dies, or I give it to somebody who's going to love it as much as me and is as passionate about it as me, and kind of how
and he's
that
brought it, and
conversation
he's
went.
brought it back from the brink.
Yeah, and I mean, he brought it back from. I mean, they tried multiple things. I mean, they brought in Ryan Newman, hell of a race car driver. Drove over there. For the Penske guys, and Flying Ryan, did his best he could. They brought Mac Kenseth for a while.
He was this
Tried to
close to
find.
making it in the playoffs.
Yep,
Newman
they
was.
they did a bunch of different stuff to try and bring it back, and ultimately they realized we need a new, fresh perspective on ownership, that somebody that's going to take it to the next level. And I think it's amazing what he's been able to do. I've got some 6 cars up there now, and I've got my 2 cars over there. And, I miss seeing that Miller Blue on the damn track every damn.
Yeah.
It was one of the prettiest cars out there.
Hadn't ran since 13.
Yep, I miss it like hell. Uh, but I'm glad Brad moved over there, but it does make me worry what's going to happen with the rest of these guys. But
Yeah.
Well,
that's
guys,
all
I
I
gotta
got.
go. I've
So,
got to get up at 2:30 in the morning.
all right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on, Brad. We really
Oh, I
enjoyed
appreciate
having
the
you. I
invite,
look
man.
forward to the
It's always
next.
a blast. So,
Yeah, if we want to do a
We'll have
diecast
to have you
show, I'd
again.
love to do that too.
oh yeah, I know a few things about those.
Yeah, just a few, right? There's only like
Just
one
a
or
few,
two
a few.
back there. So
Yeah, when
Yeah.
I asked him if he wanted to come on, he said, "You all go way farther in depth than I."
yeah,
And I'm
like,
a
shit,
truck
I gotta
guy.
start
I'm gonna
paying
have to watch
attention.
trucks and Xfinity.
Yeah.
Fuck, like because I usually don't watch them. I'm like, shit, I'm gonna sound stupid if I start watching that shit now. I'm like, damn it.
No. I said at the very beginning, episode 0, when we were like trying to figure out what we were going to call it and what we are going to do. It's just a bunch of hillbillies talking about NASCAR, fans that are passionate. You know, you can have this level of education on the sport or this level, but I wanted to have a show where guys like us could get together and express our opinions,
Hmm.
like the shows you call into or you listen to, and they shout each other down and tell you, well, let me tell you why that's stupid. You're not going to do that. You know, everybody's opinion is valid. We all pay the price of admission to watch. We
Yeah.
thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in collectibles over a lifetime. And
Oh, you can't prove that.
yep, no auditing. You can't
Don't look
I agree.
behind me.
I agree. Don't tell the wife, right?
Yeah. As far as the radio shows and stuff, in the middle of them going, "You're stupid," they're hanging up on you, and then they
Yep.
talk about your comment
Yep.
while you're off on the phone going, "Did they just hang up on me?"
Yep.
You know, that's
You
Dave
sound
Moody
like
right there. Moody always goes, you hear him on the radio go, "Thanks for your call," but all you hear on your side of it is that because
click.
he's already hit the damn click.
Yep. I will say he's let me go on a couple times. Like he's gotten better about that. I think having Angie Skinner on there has kind of mellowed him out a little bit. So I like to call on those days. He gives a little bit more grace to your callers. I try to keep it short and sweet, knowing that he's going to be like, and gong show, you're out. But I'm glad to have you. Glad to have Chip and Kevin. Like I love having everybody on. Matt when he came on, just because with all this technology, I think it's great for all of us as fans and collectors to be able to say our opinion. We're going to do it with each other, whether anybody listens or not, and just gives us an avenue to do that. So thank you very much, and I look forward to our next conversation.
All right.
All right.
Appreciate y'all having me.
All right. Everybody have a good evening.
All right.
Uh,
Later.